Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It's just after 9 p.m. We're really close to on time tonight. Where else as a Steelers fan would you rather be to wallow in your misery? And with me, not on screen yet, but we'll be in a second. With me as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
I think we should all just take a minute and oh man, it smells under here.
That's what trying to wash off the stench or whatever it was, like one of the things Coach Tomlin was saying. For those of you listening in audio form, yes, this is Big Bro Scho. He has technically, if you look at it, that's a Lito's pizza brown bag over top of his face right now, because that's kind of how it feels after this game. So, how you going? How's it going, Rich?
As a Steeler fan right now, I'd like to keep this bag on for the entire show, but really it is hot to breathe under here. So I am going to remove the bag and show my face as a Steelers fan.
All right. Well, I just dropped you out of there so you can get yourself ready and not have everything smacking into the mic and making sure everything's good. So when you're ready to jump back in, hey, wow, that was fast, man. Way to go, bro. But let's just say this. I you know what? Part of me wishes I would have had the time. I had too much going on. Might have to add this one into our little quotes that we throw out there every once in a while. And that is Coach Tomlin, after his infamous good afternoon, he said, obviously it was a stinker. That's what he said. And it's like, takes a while to wash that stench off. But you know what? It's kind of miserable to have to be going off of a game like that. But you know what? Misery loves company. So we might as well hang out together, talk about the game, and be here for everyone else who's here with us. So we're going to get into this. We're just going to dive right in. There was some news today, some practice squad changes. They dropped 2 players, a running back and a cornerback, brought in a wide receiver, so they still have another practice squad position open on the Steelers right now. Coach Tomlin spoke today. We're going to dive right into. We'll talk about various things that he brought up as we go. The big thing, other than, let's go ahead and talk about this. Yes, it's news, but it's really just about the game. We already know Cam Hayward, Deontay Johnson, both are going to be out this week. Rich, thoughts?
Cam Hayward and Deontay Johnson are both going to be out this week.
Yeah. And likely beyond. So,
well, let's just go with a typical Tomlinism here and say, well, now it's next man up. What's going to go on? I will say one thing. Cam Hayward being out, I hate for him to be out at this point in time. This is definitely not the time in his career where he wants to miss any time, but, that can't be changed at this point. I feel I'm going to agree with Shannon White on this one. Now, I will be one to say that Shannon and I don't always see eye to eye on things, but when we do, we see eye to eye on some of the weirder things. Okay. And Shannon was on the Hangover yesterday and was talking about how he feels better about filling in for a missing Cam Hayward this year than he did a couple of years ago when Tyson Alualu went down.
Yeah.
And you know what? I agree with him on that. Like, is there going to be a drop? Of course there's going to be a drop. If there wasn't going to be a drop, then whoever we put in Cam Hayward's place would be playing instead of Cam Hayward.
Or be playing next to Cam Hayward.
Right. So, to me, that's not the question. The question is how big is the drop? And I think that what the Steelers have going on this year, that drop is not going to be as severe as we had a few years ago when we lost Tyson Alualu for the season.
I think that's a very valid point. I'm going to say that I feel that the Steelers have been preparing for life without Cam Hayward for probably at least a couple seasons now.
Yes.
Now it's almost like, well, first they brought in a 5th round pick in Loudermilk. He could be like a Cam Hayward. With a 5th round pick, that's more almost in case Cam doesn't make it too much farther. Then you up the ante with the Marvin Leal with the 3rd round pick. There you're starting to look at that. Maybe that could be something more in line, but I don't know if he's exactly that player. Then you get Keanu Benton last year as a 2nd round pick. They've been adding more and more with more pedigree over the last few years. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to do so. Steelers fans, we talked, so many people in our live chat would say this over and over throughout the offseason that, hey, you got to prepare for life without Cam. I think they were getting ready to do that. I really want to see some Keanu Benton. I felt that he flashed some really nice things in his first game, but as you get with young players, you can see the infamous P word, the potential, but it doesn't mean that they can sustain it, that, play after play, down after down, game after game. And that's something that they're going to have that they're going to have to do. But the Steelers, I mean, my goodness, that was probably one of their deepest position groups. But a lot of people were not happy with that position group in the game, which we'll talk about shortly. Anything you want to say about Deontay Johnson before we just really dive into the game?
Just, other receivers are going to have to pick up those receptions. So it's, I mean, to say it's not going to hurt. Yeah, it's another one. Yeah, it's going to hurt. What can you do about it? Someone else has got to step up, or it's going to be really obvious that he's missing. We want someone to step up to the point where it's not as obvious.
And now it's interesting because you could look at this and say, you know what, being without Deontay Johnson for a while, it's not like it's going to help the Steelers win games with him being out. But hopefully it's not super long, but he's got to be able to come back and do what he does. Because if he's not ready to come, don't bring him back and then have him not really be. I'm thinking of Keller Witherspoon last year when they brought him back right before the bye, which was not the right move because then he was just done. So you got to make sure he's good to go. But if, Kenny Pickett is like, you know what? I don't have a wide open Deontay Johnson. I'm going to have to throw it to George Pickens when he's not as open. Maybe that's a good thing.
Right.
Calvin Austin III getting involved. He's not Deontay Johnson. He's not.
No.
But I think he's going to be the guy that slides up into that role. He's just going to be different. It's not going to be the same. If you take some of these young, and I mean, Allen Robinson already showed that he can step up and in any way you need him to. If those players, if Kenny Pickett ends up getting a rapport and turning to those players in a way, because sometimes Deontay Johnson can really be a safety net. He could be kind of like what I said on the preview last week. He can be the binky. He's what's comfortable because he's open, because he gets open. So when in doubt, go to Deontay Johnson because he's going to get open. So if he doesn't have that binky, that safety blanket, that safety net, then he's going to have to find other ones. Then if you get that back and you have found other ones, you're just going to be a better team. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about silver lining? That's the best thing I can say for silver lining there. Now, does it mean that the Steelers are going to have a lot of success while he's gone? That remains to be seen. So, but do I think the receiving core could be better when he comes back? I think they could be. So there you go. That's kind of talking about this game last week. Let's embrace the agony, embrace the suck. We haven't talked since the game. You don't really even want to talk about this game, but Rich, we kind of got to talk about this game.
We do.
All right. So where do you want to start? What's the one thing about this game that you think stands out in a bad, probably in a bad way more than anything? And now, before you think about that for a minute while I go over the topic of the show, because this is kind of what we're going to ask about with every little thing as we go along. Were the week one Steelers the exception or the rule? We didn't expect what the Steelers' first offense did in the preseason of, 5-for-5 touchdowns, or the defense where you could say technically when the starters were out there, they never gave up a first down. That was not sustainable into the regular season to happen at that level. But we thought we were going to see something similar to that. Are those the real Steelers, or is what we saw on Sunday afternoon the real Steelers? And we're not going to get this answer for at least another 6 days and possibly even beyond. But in 6 days is when we have an opportunity to. So we're kind of, as we talk about these things, is this going to be, was this, when I say was it the exception or was the rule, is this really who the Steelers are? And the exception was what we saw in the preseason. Or are they somewhere more on that level? And this was just the exception because of, the way a quality opponent, the way the game played out early, not being ready to smack the other team in the mouth, and therefore you got smacked in the mouth, those kind of things. All right. So what do you want to talk about first, Rich?
I don't know what would you like to talk about first, Dave, because I know at some point you have a soapbox you want to get on, and
we'll get there. Yeah. We'll get there. We don't have to start there.
I didn't tell you about mine, but okay.
Okay, go ahead. So we'll let you start.
Here's the first thing. I'm not going to go up on my soapbox yet, but here's the one thing I want to bring up in the game. Okay, I knew that the Steelers' first team offense was not going to be the 5-for-5 that we got in the preseason. But I also didn't think it would take the Steelers until inside the 2-minute warning and the 2-minute drill before they could pick up a first down.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's not really more to say about that.
That was awful.
Yeah.
Just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 interception, 3 and out. It's like
yeah. And I'm still, unfortunately, I haven't got to see the game again since seeing it live. Because I have to see it on. I'm not like you. I wasn't not like most of the country that was in the area where they got the Steelers game. I got the Commanders game. So, but I now have Sunday ticket. So, but I can't DVR it. So I would have to wait. And I completely forgot to look up when the replay would be, where I would possibly tape it. But do I really want to watch that game again? No. But there are a couple things I would really like to go back and look at again. For example, some have said, Deontay Johnson, he fell down and the interception and all. If it wasn't for that, he would have caught it. I'm like, maybe he wouldn't have caught it. Probably would have kept the defender from getting the interception, something of that nature. Oh, he's got to not be able to fall down on that. But I also saw others say Deontay Johnson fell down because he was having to adjust to a poorly thrown ball. I haven't been able to actually go back and figure out what that really was. But I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Well, you brought up Deontay Johnson and slipping and going down. Let me bring up my second smaller soapbox I wanted to get on to for the night. Okay, I've really come to the decision that having both the Pitt Panthers and the Pittsburgh Steelers play on the grass field at Acrisure Stadium is a mistake.
Especially so close to each other. I mean, you're talking a night game and then an afternoon.
Panthers played there Saturday night. Steelers turned around and played the next day. It was raining during the Panthers game. The field got honestly tore up pretty badly. And you could actually, if you looked closely on the broadcast, could see where there were places where they just filled in with sand and painted it green.
Yeah, and it's funny because people are like, "Hey, this is the Steelers' home field. Shouldn't they know what kind of shoes they should have had?" Because Patrick Peterson talked about changing his cleats, and others did as well. Then the slipping issue went away. 49ers didn't have a slipping issue, but like I said, that's because they're used to playing on a field that's absolute crap on where they built that stadium.
Yeah,
so at least it was several years ago.
They automatically play with the longer cleats on grass everywhere they go because that's what they play on their home.
And the Steelers probably played with what they played during their preseason game there, not expecting it to be that bad from Pitt, where the 49ers are used to just playing on a bad field. So
I don't watch a lot of college football. I watched part of that Pitt game on Saturday night, partly because it was at home. And I'm just sitting there watching the field thinking, boy, this is going to be great for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then for the first half of the first quarter, it looked like half of the Steelers team were on ice skates.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you figure that out during warm-ups or something? Don't you think you'd warm up hard enough to figure out?
Which to me, that just goes into overall preparation.
Yep.
And that's why it's basically on everyone. I mean, you're talking equipment managers even. You know, you've got to place it at the feet of everyone, which we'll get to shortly. But we're going to take an early break. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take it now because I've got a couple things that I want to bring up about this game that we're going to get to. So we're going to go ahead and break so that way we can just, if we get rolling, we can just keep rolling. So if you're with us here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we're not going anywhere. If you're here with us on the audio, we'll be back right after these messages. All right, Steelers fans, we are rolling on talking about what was the Suckfest at Acrisure on, I mean, wasn't that great Saturday evening, was it? Let alone Sunday afternoon.
Right.
So that was back-to-back big disappointments there. I saw the score to that game and kind of how things were playing out. But, yeah, just – you got to talk about a couple of the elephants in the room. And I'm going to bring up the first one because I think it's where some people don't want to go because they're afraid of what it means. And you know what? We'll go ahead and talk about this, and then I'll bring up something else. And that is to say that Kenneth Shane Pickett really struggled on Sunday would be an understatement.
Yes.
It was not good. The accuracy was bad. Okay. People were talking about, oh, he could have had another interception, but Fred Warner couldn't pull it in. Fred Warner was trailing on that play. And the ball was so far behind the receiver, it was behind the defender to where he couldn't catch it. And Kenny said later that, you know, him and the receivers weren't seeing the same things. That kind of makes sense, you know, just off a little bit of where he thinks they're going to go versus where they're going to go based on how they should react in very minor things, even with how things go. And this goes back to an article that I wrote for SteelCurtainNetwork.com during the lull from the third, not the lull of OTAs to training camp. This is the lull from the third preseason game to the Steelers week 1 game. And that is, how's it going to look when teams are specifically game planning for Kenny Pickett? Yep. And that's what we saw on Sunday. They were specifically trying to confuse him and the receivers to not be on the same page. And it worked. So they didn't see that in the preseason because you don't do that in the preseason. You don't plan in that manner. So that was what I put part of it to, that, you know, there was a specific game plan for Kenny Pickett that he hadn't seen in 8 months. So therefore, he didn't react the best way, which made him appear to be inaccurate. I don't know if he was like the one that I'm talking about with the Fred Warner didn't catch. That one could have just been a bad throw. But I think some of those inaccurate throws were that he expected the receiver to be slightly not where they were whenever he went to release that ball. So I'm not, like I said, I don't want to make excuses for him because that's not the way you want it to be. You need to be on the same page.
Okay, so along the same lines, then I'm going to have a question for you.
Okay.
So yes, how was Kenny Pickett going to do as a second-year quarterback coming in for a team that is specifically game planned against Kenny Pickett?
Yeah. Did
the Steelers defense have a game plan for Brock Purdy? Because sure as heck didn't seem like it.
Oh, I think they did. I think their game plan was the one that I mentioned when I referred to the binky on Thursday, is you needed to minimize Christian McCaffrey. Well, they were trying to minimize McCaffrey, Samuel, and Kittle. And you can't meatloaf that. You can't meatloaf it. You can't say 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You've got to get all 3 because Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, I mean, he converted that 4th down play. That was his biggest play of the game. But they did minimize those 2. But then McCaffrey you couldn't minimize, and Ayuk filled the void. So it was honestly, it was too much. They couldn't slow down McCaffrey. They just couldn't. That was their game plan, and they just couldn't do it. That's my opinion. So go ahead. I mean, do you think they just didn't have the plan?
I don't think their plan overall was great. Other than I can say this. So I was catching a lot of balls in what seems to be just huge voids in the zone. So, okay, you're rolling the zones to, the coverage in the zones towards Deebo and Kittle, right? Mm-hmm. And pretty smart enough to make the throws to Ayuk, and it kills us.
Yeah.
Okay, and we really don't adjust for that the entire game. Mm-hmm. If the 49ers are doing a similar thing and Kenny Pickett's not able to make an adjustment, that worries me.
Yeah.
That Mr. Irrelevant could make adjustments and get to the guys. And first-round pick Kenny Pickett couldn't do it. I'm not one to sound all gloom doom, but it's kind of like you were saying before. I'm not sure what I'm looking at yet.
And now let's address the elephant in the room, the other one.
Okay.
The difference is, I'm going to start coughing here. The difference is, you were saying Kenny Pickett versus Mr. Irrelevant. One could change it, adjust on the fly. The other couldn't. Okay. Well, first of all, the 49ers knew that the Steelers were going to try to take away those things. I don't think the Steelers knew what the 49ers were going to try to do to combat Kenny Pickett, because the Steelers were not the last year juggernaut that the 49ers were. So you had an idea of what the 49ers were based on those things. And that's obviously what they're going to try to do, because that's what everyone's going to have to try to do. Now, if Pittsburgh did anything, give a blueprint to the rest of the 49ers opponents. Don't try this; it won't work. All right, yeah. There you go. But my thing is, it seemed like Brock Purdy, was it himself, or was he already prepared to how he was going to adjust, where Kenny Pickett wasn't? Was it on the player there? Or was it on the preparation, both of the player and those others in the room? That's a good question. So,
I don't know. But after a game like that, what you sit around and worry about is man, the Steelers better be prepared and do an awful lot of changing up this week, because otherwise they just gave the entire league the blueprint how to beat the defense and the blueprint on how to stop the offense, and that would be terrible.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, because we'll get to it soon. I'm pretty glad that the Steelers have a familiar opponent this week, because take that variable out of it. The unfamiliarity with each other and everything, that's no longer a variable that we have to worry about. Was that part of the problem? All right, so that's gone. All right, I want to have a serious conversation about something, but in order to do it, I have to set it up. I am so tired of not being able to have a serious conversation about this. Because people, and you know what? Kenny Pickett's starting to get into the same category. I thought of this when I brought him up, into the same category. And that is, you can't have the discussion where the truth lies, because the truth lies in the middle. Everyone wants to be so polarizing about how it is. You can't have a rational discussion, because all you have is irrational overreactions. And I want to have a serious conversation about the coaching element of this game. And I know exactly what's going to happen. And you know what? I'm ready to time out if I have to, or more than anything, I'm probably just going to try to ignore the live chat, because what it is the extreme ends make you feel like you have to pick a side, and the side should be the side of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you have to pick a side. Anytime you say anything critical about, we're going to just Jews in general, Coach Tomlin. Okay. Anything critical about Coach Tomlin, Oh, you're just one of the Tomlin haters. Anything you say anything good about Coach Tomlin, oh, you're just a Tomlin apologist. Okay. Guess what? A coach can have both good and bad things, and you should be able to talk about them without the ridiculous bipolarism of the whole thing. Let's talk about it for real rather than just the emotional. I'll be honest with you. I struggle
the emotional, the personal.
Yes. I struggle with
talk X's and O's.
Identifying the difference between trolling and irrational outbursts. Yes. Because I think you don't really think that. You're just trying to stir everybody up. So, but really it just might be an irrational outburst. So I struggle between identifying those two things. So sometimes I think people were just trolling. But now it's time to have this conversation because it's a serious one that needs to be had. All right. Let's talk about the Steelers coaches. And I'm not, I don't want to be polarizing one way or the other because I want to talk about how it really is.
Okay.
Let's start at the top.
Yes.
Let's start with Mike Tomlin.
Yes.
Had a very interesting.
My personal opinion on Coach Tomlin. And what went wrong for him in this game. And I don't know if he would admit to this, but he would potentially admit to this. I think between training camp and the preseason, Coach Tomlin got a little too comfortable and a little too, as a coach, got a little lackadaisical.
Well, remember, he doesn't seek comfort. And it almost seemed like things were going well.
And he got too comfortable.
Maybe.
And it bit him in the butt.
For Coach Tomlin. What I mean? I don't know that Coach Tomlin's ever comfortable, but he might have reached a level of comfort that he hasn't before, and he shouldn't have. Okay? So, here's the thing with Coach Tomlin. I actually was in a Sunday school class Sunday morning before the game. I went early to go to that because I needed to work with other stuff with the game. And the conversation was talking about how much time it takes to be an expert at something. And during this conversation, I brought up, I'm like, even in your job, my job, anyone's job, whether you think you're an expert or not, there are going to be certain things that you are more of an expert of than others. We use the example of teaching. Okay, you might be a great lecturer, but not a good disciplinarian. You might be a good disciplinarian, but not a good grader. You might be a good grader, but not a good organizer. Those are different things that you could have different strengths. So when you talk about Coach Tomlin and him as a coach, he has strengths and he has weaknesses. Okay. Some people talk about, oh, he's just a cheerleader. You know what? You want to say it's just a cheerleader. Part of being a coach is motivating your players to do the best that they can. So if you want to call that a cheerleader, you know what? You're wrong. It's part of being a coach. And if you don't know that, then you probably haven't coached because that's part of what you need to do. And you're like, oh, these are professionals. They should motivate themselves. Coach Tomlin says that, but guess what? There are people you will run through a wall for and people that you won't. So that is something that Coach Tomlin does well. Coach Tomlin is not an offensive genius. He's not. Nope. Okay. I don't even know that I would call him a defensive genius. I don't know who's really in charge of the defensive stuff. But if you're not, and I don't know, and I wouldn't call him an innovator. I would not call him an innovator. But
I haven't been watching, but I thought I had to bring it back.
They said that's what you got to do there, for sure. Leave the pigeons loose. All right.
So, I will say this. When I was there in the preseason, I was upset. I saw only one pigeon the entire time. I thought, geez, where's the pigeons?
Yeah. Yeah. Need the pigeons. I forgot all about the pigeons. I'm glad you did that. So back to my thing.
Okay.
Coach Tomlin, he is not an innovator. So do you know what he needs to surround himself with on his staff? Innovators. The whole point of a coaching staff is to cover your weaknesses. And I even said this before in my coaching. I was who I needed to be. When I was an assistant coach, the head coach, he was calm, cool, and collected. I was the fiery guy. I was on the officials. I was firing up kids. I was the yeller. I was the screamer. Then when I moved up to be the head coach of that level and I had another assistant, guess what he was? He was the fiery guy. I was the calm, cool, collected guy because I needed to be what he wasn't. You need to have complementary coaches. And I am not a Matt Canada fan. I am not someone that thinks that he should be fired at this second. I was someone that would have been fine and thought it would have been a smart move if they would have let him go in the offseason, but it just doesn't the way the Steelers do business. They don't like to pay coaches to not do anything. It's just what they do. They live with their decisions to a fault. That happens. But if Coach Tomlin is not a guy that can contribute to the offense in a way to at least bring some innovation, then you need somebody, either your coordinator or someone who is close to that coordinator, to do so. And I think the Steelers are severely lacking that. I do not think Matt Canada is that guy. I don't think he's the right kind of coach to go with a Mike Tomlin as a coach. I don't think they cover each other's weaknesses and therefore with their own strengths.
Let me go on to the coaching side. It involves Matt Canada a lot, and maybe on the fringe here, Mike Tomlin a little bit. And let me say this: I'm a guy. I look for patterns. I look for things that I notice that repeat themselves. Okay, here's my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Last year in the preseason, we saw some things. It was Ben was gone and some things there. Oh, look, hey. Matt Canada's showing the flash here. Look at how we're kind of opening some things up here in the preseason. And look at this. And some throws down the field and blah, 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 blah. And we get to the regular season first week, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we
let it interfere.
Okay. Okay. We're in this preseason and we're seeing those same things. Pushing the ball down the field and some stuff like that. And then suddenly we get to week one, and what was the game plan? The same exact game plan from week one last year.
Yeah. Hey, it worked week one against the Bengals. Let's do it now. I'm not laying this all on the coaches because the coaches weren't the ones out there throwing passes behind people.
They weren't throwing the pass behind people.
They also weren't doing any favors.
They weren't whiffing on blocks and whiffing on tackles and things like that. So it is not all on the coaches. But to me, from the coaching standpoint, that was a disappointment.
Yeah.
To kind of see that get us all hyped up, seeing some different stuff in the preseason, thinking, okay, we're going to look to open up. And then we get to the first game, and the play calling was the same old.
Yeah.
And we didn't even pick up a first down until we're in the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half.
Yeah. But so much was just thrown out the window because they got punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
You can spar all you want, but the first time you get punched in the mouth, how are you going to handle it? And that's the problem. The Steelers had only been sparring. They only sparred in the offseason and in preseason. They came out into the heavyweight fight and got punched in the mouth as soon as the bell rang.
But even in the preseason, a couple times with the first team offense out there, that they went up tempo, okay, just to try to change things. We didn't go up tempo until we went into the 2-minute drill.
Yeah,
like it was literally run out there for how many series in a row and pretty much do the same thing.
Yeah,
and it wasn't working. It was the definition of insanity.
Yeah, well, but you also got to look at this because I know when people come into the post-game show that we have right after the game here on the YouTube channel, myself, Jeff Hartman, Brian Anthony Davis, people are emotional, people are irrational, and it's the knee-jerk reaction. You come together right. to live together in our misery. But it just goes to show you how the problem is always execution. The problem is always execution. A play is terrible when it doesn't work. A play is great when it does. It could be the exact same friggin' play. I talked about that in the Steelers' third play on offense of their last preseason game, the 3rd and 5 that they threw it deep to Deontay Johnson. If that ball was thrown like Kenny Pickett was throwing balls on Sunday, then what would the narrative have been? Oh, there they go, throwing deep on 3rd and short. Oh, 3 and out, right back to the same old stuff. But they executed it. They did it well, and they didn't execute. Now, I will tell you, play number 2, which was not a jet sweep. It was jet in motion. It was technically a pass play when it went into the books. But yes, in essence, it was a jet sweep. Something was wrong there because the play they ran and the way that they blocked it were not the same. But even if the Steelers would have blocked it well, they were losing that from a number standpoint, the way that play was set up. That is not a play that should have been run there. That should have been something that should have been checked out of, if that's something they're allowing him to do right now. But that was not, as soon as you did, that was one of those things. The Patrick Peterson was talking about how their offense has tells. The Steelers' offense has tells. They knew exactly what was going to be coming right there when that happened. So that was not the right play there. And that just kind of got everything like, whoa. Then you've got to pass. I mean, I can't even remember which off-target pass was which one and things of that nature. And it was the question for so long was, how would the Steelers respond when things weren't going perfectly? Their offense went perfect through the preseason, the first-team offense. Perfect. And the first time they get to 3rd down and they don't convert and they 3 and out and they got a punt, it was almost like, what's this? I don't know what to do. Is what it felt like. And that's how they played for almost the rest of the entire first half.
Yeah.
Players and coaches.
Yes. Yes, it was like the team had no clue that they were just like, wait a minute.
That didn't work?
What's this?
We didn't do it?
Well, what are we going to do now?
I mean, to go back to the whole overreaction thing that I started to say, which I never got to in the post-game show, was someone had a comment which I thought was hilarious, which goes to show that execution is everything. They said, why did the Steelers run the ball in the 4th quarter? What's the point? You know how many times they they had a running play in the 4th quarter? One. And yet there was complaints that they ran too much in the 4th quarter. We complain when the Steelers, stick to a running game that's not working, and we complain when they don't run it enough to see if it even works. I don't know what the happy medium is. Bottom line is they have to execute. If you execute, all that goes away. So all these other problems and complaints, it all boils down to the same thing, the exact same thing: execution.
Yep.
You can go out there and run it 25 times for 25 yards. You're not executing. You could go out there and run it 5 times for 25 yards. You got, it doesn't matter. You've got to execute with whether it's enough or whether it's too much or not enough. So,
and in talking to some of this, then you've kind of got me to think about something. Is the Steelers' success this season going to boil down to Kenny Pickett being mega accurate?
Yeah.
You brought that up, that 3rd down in the preseason when they throw the ball long to Deontay Johnson.
He dropped right in there.
I mean, is Kenny Pickett going to have to be mega accurate? There's a good chance that's going to be the case. That if the games where Kenny Pickett comes out and is perfectly on target and throwing the ball exactly where he wants to throw it, the Steelers win. If Kenny Pickett comes out and is struggling to hit receivers, get on the same page, like the issues we had the other day, the Steelers are going to really struggle.
Yeah. I want to bring up a comment. Sorry to do this, Matt Roberts. Says execution comes down to coaching. Wholeheartedly disagree with that.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. Okay. Preparation does not equal execution. The coaching is all about preparation. When you go out there on the field and the guy lined up, the guy on the defensive line lined up across with the guy on the offensive line, just comes out there and whips you. That is not coaching. And that just distributes the whole execution of the play. That's not coaching. That's the Jimmies and Joes. Execution comes down to the players doing their job on the field. And now, coaching is a component of it, but it is not what it comes down to.
Right.
You know what? Coaching helps it, but if the player's not goes out there, and you could have them as mentally prepared as anything you could do, and they still can't go out there and get the job done. That's what it comes down to. You've got to get the job done when the time comes. Okay.
We got a
Thank
couple
you,
of these
because I want
to make sure we. Yeah,
I won't lose them. There's a new thing on there where I can go and go into their own category.
That's where I went.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Tyler W, $5 in tip jar. Thank you, Tyler. He says, my theory, Steelers have an A+ game plan or they lose. We don't have the personnel to rise above the scheme like Ben could. Only Watt does now. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
That is, I would call that I don't want to call that an accurate statement. I want to call that a mostly accurate statement.
Yeah.
The Steelers, the Steelers have had teams in the past where they could get off the game plan and it didn't matter as much.
Yeah.
That wiggle room is a lot less with this current Steelers team.
Yes.
So I don't want to say
it's
that
narrowed the path.
It's a 100%.
It narrows the path.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a 100% true statement, but it's a pretty good observation in terms of the teams that are out there in the league that can be very good, but they don't have that wiggle room. Okay. I'm sorry, San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, they got the wiggle room.
They have the wiggle room.
See, because
the Pittsburgh Steelers do not.
I'm going to add something to Tyler's thing and to what I believe would make it more accurate, and I think he would completely agree with this. You can tell me later, Tyler. He says, my theory, the Steelers have to have an A+ game plan against high-quality opponents, or they lose. They are not good enough. The coaches are not good enough without the players, and the players are not good enough without the coaches. They all have to come together with the game plan and the execution of it if they're going to beat a high-quality opponent. The Steelers faced a couple high-quality opponents last year. The ones we like to talk about the most, that I keep bringing up, is the Bills and the Eagles. We saw how that happened, and the Steelers showed the same thing with this one, and that's what was disappointing. But they had to have an A+ game plan and the personnel pulling off that game plan in order to be able to beat the Niners. But I thought they could beat the Niners because it looked like they were bringing that all together during the faux football,
Yeah.
period.
And basically the game plan looked like a Levi Wallace tackle. They
just kind of whiffed. Yeah, wasn't there. All right, here's the other. We got $2 dingo dollars from our buddy Marky D. Steelers Nation.
Love me some dingo dollars.
Yeah, he says we complain about everything. No, it's just you want to know what went wrong, and the thing is, it's so many times, it's just one little thing. You could have the play blocked great. The receiver could run the route super crisp. And if the ball's off a little bit, not only is it going to probably be an incompletion, it could very well be an interception. One aspect of everything makes it go. In order to have a successful offense, it all has to work together. Now, there are some times that it's designed that, hey, if the guy on the backside, we would like him to try to reach and go get that block. But if he doesn't get that block perfectly, then we only get a 5-yard gain instead of a 15-yard gain. Sometimes you get things like that. But for the most time, it takes everything. It takes everything. We got another one here. We got Kyle Smith. Okay. I want you to answer this question here, Rich. Yep. It says, why do they keep trying to move Minka around? It has never worked. When does let's go ahead and answer that one first, and then we'll move on.
Right now, the way Mick is playing, I'm worried with some of that has to do with the safety personnel.
Yeah.
And the packages that they're running right now. I'm not totally sure what I think of that. Actually, I know who I'd love to hear weigh in some more on that with some film to back it up. That would be Coach KT Smith. Would love to get his take on this, and with a little bit of some of the film work he does to back it up would probably help me set my thoughts on that a lot more. Only because I trust KT to really show me what I think, either show me what I think I'm seeing, or show me where I'm seeing things incorrectly. I'm not sure I'm seeing it well enough right now to get too deep into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you know what? I might be able to answer that better. Actually, I might be able to answer that better next week after I've sat in stadium and watched the game.
Yeah.
Because I have a hard time picking up safety play on television. It's just when I'm watching games on TV.
Yeah, it really is.
Safety play is not something
you're not going to get the same. You're not going to get the same view now. You're on the side. You're not in the end zone where you really get the good safety view of the safety play.
Oh, yeah. Except for one thing.
What?
I'm still really way up high and looking.
That's
down,
true.
so
you are pretty high, so you get that.
So
yeah, yeah. So to me, yeah. If they wanted to do the same thing with Terrell Edmunds, he left for so cheap. You should have just kept Terrell Edmunds. I don't know. I'm hoping this was just something specifically because of everything with the 49ers, that they will have a different game plan with Minka. So next thing that Kyle says, when does Man Moore get sacked? And he says about worst rated OT by PFF. And then they said about Kenny got his head smacked again. Dan Moore did not have a good game, but it was really interesting how Coach Tom talked about it. He said how he thought the guys up front with pass protection did the job that they wanted them to do until late in the game when everything got one-dimensional and they could just tee off and go do their thing.
Yeah.
The Steelers held I said the wrong one. Nick Bosa. It's Nick, right? I almost said Joey.
Yes.
Nick Bosa in check.
Yeah.
They held him in check. That was their goal. And they did that. Regardless of where he moved to. They did that. Now, here's what's interesting. I mean, would you say, Bosa was all but shut out of the, didn't have any sacks, anything like that. I think he might have had he might have had a pressure or two, but that's
right.
it.
He was there and he played, but he was for the most part a very low impact player.
Yeah. Now, someone who I felt had a lot of impact on the Niners defense running around in the middle of the field was Fred Warner. Now, you brought up how Dan Moore was the worst rated offensive tackle by PFF. Yeah, I do the reports on PFF. I know, I got this. I did the article today and everything else. My goodness, the left side of the Steelers' offensive line were the bottom, center, guard, tackle were the bottom three scores. I didn't argue much with the Steelers' scores with where they fell with each other. But remember, PFF is just an opinion. It's an opinion based on looking at every play, but it's just an opinion. To show you how much PFF doesn't necessarily get it right, who do you think was the highest ranked defender for the San Francisco 49ers in that game, Rich?
Oh, well, let's see. I'll just go out on a limb since it's PFF.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know how much they love Myles Garrett when we shut him down to nothing and give him wonderful scores. Let's just say it was Nick Bosa then.
You are correct. It was Nick Bosa.
Right.
Who was their lowest rated defender for the San Francisco 49ers? The only one with less than a 60 score.
Probably the guy that got 3 sacks.
No, it wasn't that guy because they'll do that.
Then they probably said Fred Warner.
It was Fred Warner.
Who was all over the place.
Joey. Nick Bosa was the best defender on the field for the 49ers, and that Fred Warner was the worst. That is not what happened in that game.
Not what I saw. That doesn't
what happened in that game. That is a joke. That's a joke. So, yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that ridiculous?
That is ridiculous.
That's
ridiculous.
To me, I thought they did all right with the Steelers scores this week. But I wanted to peek over at San Francisco's, and when I saw that on defense, I'm like, I can't even trust what they said for the Steelers now.
Nick Bosa was middle of the pack, and Fred Warner was in the top third.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy.
Yeah. It really was. He was all over the place. I don't know what else they wanted to do. Okay. Rich, we haven't even turned the corner because so much of turning the corner is fixing of what happened.
Yes.
So I'm sorry I can't went up. And like I said, the Steelers, you're stuck with this year. People are saying you're going to fire. No one's getting fired. They're not firing anyone now. So you can scream all you want about it. It's not going to happen. Okay. But that's what happens after the Steelers lose, especially a big loss. You want to fire everyone. You want to bench everyone. Well, you don't have better players to put in, and you're not going to find someone that's going to come in. I mean, you could argue that someone else could maybe step in and do a better job, but it's just not the way they're going to do it. Okay. So sometimes you just have to accept reality. But I am going to say that I just don't think that Matt Canada and Mike Tomlin together bring enough innovation and dynamic play. And I don't think it's a problem with the players at this point. Now, maybe they had more innovation and more dynamic play that we were supposed to see in week one, and the inaccuracy of Kenny Pickett didn't allow them to do it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I'm not going to say, it would have happened if. Not going to believe that. Okay, I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't believe it. So I'm getting all wound up tonight about everything. But it was really nice to be able to talk for real about coaches and not have this where you have to be one extreme or the other. Because I will say there are so many people that wish more than anything they could play for Mike Tomlin. And you hear the speeches and all that, and that is his strength. The problem is he has to have the right people. He has to be able to identify his own weaknesses and bring in the right people to cover them. And that's the mistakes that I think that they made. And I don't know and my concern is that it won't ever get fixed. And I'll believe it when I see it. Because to me, they're 0 for 2 in their last offensive coordinators. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not even going to bring it up, but I'm going to pick on somebody in the live chat. John Stevens, he kind of says, "Sorry, not sorry. Canada's got to go ASAP." He's going to keep.
It's not going to happen.
Look, you can have the right, and you can keep saying it, and I'm not going to take that away from you. You can keep saying it, and I'm just going to then just keep telling you, keep saying it. It's not happening during the season. It's just not.
They won't fire him. If anything, though, they will under the radar, without trying to let anyone know, take various responsibilities from him. I'm not saying that they wouldn't do that.
Right.
But I mean, my goodness, they basically years ago, before they hired Mike Munchak, they literally had an offensive line coach that came into work every day and did nothing because they took everything away from him. And that's how Sean Sarrett started off with more responsibilities with the Steelers because they were done with him, but they weren't going to fire him.
Right.
If anything, that should tell you how it's going to be.
So if you think in week 10 or 11 that Matt Canada is not going to be sitting in the press box, keep thinking it because that's not going to be. Now, if he's in the press box, guess what? He might not be the one who's in the quarterback's helmet feeding them the plays. That we'll never know. Yeah.
I would love if they would change things, but if they do it, they're going to do it so low profile, they'll do everything to keep us from finding out about it.
Yep. Exactly.
So, I mean, because really, how much do we know now? They keep it low profile. We don't know. Like, we still don't know. People still think they know and talk like they know. They don't know. You don't know how much input Mike Tomlin has on the defense for real. Mike Tomlin's right. He's got his hands in everything. But people that say, well, Tomlin calls all the defensive plays. We don't know that. People have assumed that at times, but we don't know that because they're going to do everything they can to keep us from knowing that. So, yeah.
All right. Turn the corner.
Right. Turn the page. We're already running real late with that, but there they are. But it's funny. So it is frustrating because sometimes we put so much more on the coaches because we feel like that's the easier fix. What's easier, to replace your offensive coordinator or to replace your starting quarterback?
Right.
What's easier?
Okay.
I mean, really. So, and not only that, your starting quarterback that's supposed to be your quarterback moving forward for the future. Because let's say, oh yeah, well they could always just go to Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph, like people talk to and everything. That's not your future. You would be starting over. You would live in the present to restart your future, and that's really really difficult to do. So I want to be critical of Kenny Pickett for this game. But that doesn't mean that we write off Kenny Pickett. Just like one game does not a season make, one game does not a career make. Okay, right. Kenny Pickett can come out and rip the Browns a new one on Monday night, and we'll just say, oh, that just goes to show how good the 49ers are, and we'll be all right.
I look at it this way: Kenny Pickett may have been there, and the accuracy wasn't really there on this weekend. Okay, and I've got the perfect analogy to look at. It's like, you know. I'll just pick somebody. So, Roger Clemens. Better than that. Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux was known as a pinpoint accurate pitcher in baseball. Greg Maddux will tell you there were times that he went out and took the mound and did not have it.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, Kenny Pickett did not have it. That does not mean that he doesn't walk out there on Monday night and have it.
Yeah.
It can work that way.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're talking about a player that's at the beginning of their career. I mean, my goodness. For example, I can't even remember his name, but he was their first overall pick for the Pirates in baseball. What happened? They ended up shutting him down. But what did he do? He went out and had a bad outing. Oh, no, he had a bad outing in Double-A or whatever it was. This guy is, it happens. It happens. Here we go. We got one. $5 from Vincent. Is it Guerrero? Or if you go Spanish, Guerrero. Probably Guerrero. $5 says the story is that they aren't built. G. Vincent G. The story is that they aren't built to beat a front seven like that, even with the improved O-line. I can agree with that statement. They're still, especially in week one. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
especially maybe later in the season the offensive line can come together and get that nasty streak. But maybe they had some paralysis by analysis. Maybe the 49ers were doing stuff they just did not anticipate. And they couldn't stop it, along with being really, really good. Okay. So he said, even with the pre line, Browns are a test, good D, but not San Fran. Thoughts? Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Statement's pretty true. The Browns, a good defense, but they're not a San Francisco level defense. Going to, again, we got a litmus test on the Steelers from this past week. It was not good. This week will be another litmus test, and we will see exactly where they fare on that one. Again, right now we've only got one game to analyze.
Yes, exactly.
By next week's show, we'll have two games to analyze. We'll have more data. Going to be see what that data is.
And it's because they played the Steelers. Right now, the 49ers are the only team that I am definitively putting in the top tier of defenses in the NFL. They're not alone. I just want more data for the rest of them. Like, I didn't watch enough because that game was boring, and I was so mad about the Steelers to know how great the Cowboys defense was. The Jets defense looked pretty good. It
reminded me of San Francisco in the fact that they played fast.
Yeah. So those are some other teams that are going to be up there. But I'm just saying, the question is it San Francisco and a couple other teams, or is it just San Francisco? We know that that based on the Steelers' experience, that they're up there with that. They are a good defense. You just wanted to see your team come out and do a little bit more with it. All right, Daniel H has $1.99. He says, "I'll bet $1.99 that Tomlin will be fired on Friday." I'm assuming this is a pretty good joke because he already gave us the $1.99 because he knows it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
I like that, Daniel. That's a pretty good one. I have to admit. So, was that the last one? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. So now I can't find it to make it go away. Here we go. This is just disappointed in the offensive line that there was a play early in the game I wanted to bring up. I know we need to get going. There's a play early in the game where Najee's in the middle, right around the line of scrimmage, and still fighting. And Isaac Seumalo and someone else were just kind of standing there next to him. It almost seemed like it was another example of, wait, what's he doing right here? This isn't what we thought was going to happen. Because you don't just stop and stand around while guys are trying to tackle your your running back right next to you. So just something was off. Something was off. So, Rich, let's turn this corner real quick, even though we're running about 10, 15 minutes behind. So what needs to happen for Monday? What needs to go on Monday night?
Offensively, the Steelers need to move the football. Defensively, I'll just go straight up say it. The Steelers need to stop Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the two keys. Move the ball offensively. Doesn't mean we got to score a touchdown every time or things like that, but the Steelers need to get more consistency in moving the football down the field. And they will need to stop Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
There you go.
But at least it's a more familiar person for them to try to stop.
Correct.
And a more familiar system and more familiar coaches. You know, it almost seemed like, that I don't know that the Steelers could anticipate what the 49ers might have been throwing at them. And that one does fall on coaching.
Yep.
It does. It does. So I don't know what else to say more about this game coming up, other than this is going to help judge more. Was week one the exception or the rule? So how you feel about this game coming up probably goes to show more how you feel. Is this the team, the Pittsburgh Steelers team, that we're going to basically expect to see each week in 2023? Doesn't mean getting your doors blown off. It means you can stick in it with close games with teams that are but teams that are, talking about Lombardis, you're not going to stick with them. They're just going to take it to you. Is that what they're going to be? Or is it that, they're more a team that can play with those type of teams? They just didn't have their stuff on Sunday.
Right.
So to me, kind of how you feel about that is going to be is going to be kind of how you answer the big question. Rich, are you ready to do it?
Yeah.
What's your score prediction for Monday night?
All right, Monday night.
You're going to be there, so that's going to make a difference.
I will be present in Acrisure Stadium. My daughter and I are going to the game. We are looking forward to it. I expect to see a much better football game. I expect it to still be a very close football game, as a lot of times games with the Browns are, and especially talking early in the season. Mine's going to be simple. I'm going to base this on the fact that Cleveland won against Cincinnati week 1, and the Steelers got drubbed out by the 49ers. So I'm going Cleveland 21, Pittsburgh 17.
Yeah, and I'll talk about it more on Stat Geek. I know Jeff's already mentioned a couple of times. There's a crazy stat about teams the week after they play the 49ers.
Yep.
I don't think a single team last season won a game after they played the 49ers. So I'm going to go back and look at that a little bit more, Stat Geek, and see exactly how those games looked and everything else. Now, before I put it in there for everyone to put their score in there, I want to bring up one other comment first. This rings so true with so many of us, Wes, because of where he was talking about, hey, I this is what I was thinking with Steelers. He's like, he says that doesn't mean, because he was talking about, I'll admit I was wrong. I thought this team could really hang with people. That's why I think I looked at his previous comment just to make sure I knew what he was saying, because I liked what he said here. He says that doesn't mean I didn't have a reason to be confident in the Steelers, but now that confidence is gone. Yeah. I think that sums up so many people. So many people that believe that they could go in there and even beat the 49ers because of what they've done in week ones recently and things like that, that they did that. there was confidence there, but now that confidence is gone. There are people already putting scores in there, but guess what? They don't count. You know it because I haven't put it in the live chat yet. So here we go. So I'm trying to look at names so I know not to bring yours up. No, I'm not going to be that spiteful. I'm not going to do that. But let's get them quick. Right, and here we go.
Who do y'all like?
Yeah. So here you go. And remember, if you just give a score, we assume you mean that Steelers win. That's just our overall way that we do things. George says Steelers 20-17 in OT. Okay. Thomas Riley says Browns 17, Steelers 17, tie. Let's see. Whoa, it keeps skipping on me. Gabriel Golden says 26-20. That's got to be Steelers. Brian Brown says 31-21 Steelers. We're in Kenny's small hands. Okay. In other words, shake off the stank of last week. That is what they're going to be like. Afton says 17-13 Steelers. Dion Eaton says 24-21. Did it come up yet? Steelers. I clicked on it. There it is. Steel Dog 88 has Steelers 13-10 with Boss coming through. There's just so many things you could go either way with this. Steelers have like 20 straight home wins on Monday Night Football, going back to 1991. But then teams, what's that? But then teams don't beat the 49ers or win the week after playing the 49ers. There's so many ways you can convince yourself one way or the other. George Rice says Pittsburgh 28-17. Okay. He's like, we don't lose with Big Bro in attendance. See, well, Wes, I love you, Wes, but man, you're such a waffler. Man, the Steelers are going to go 15-2. Now they're going to go 2-15. I know, because you're just like, they broke your heart. And so this is what you expect now. And I get it. Yes, 43-3 Cleveland. Okay. So the Steelers can only score as many points as what the Bengals did. Steelers Nation Australia says Steelers 8, Browns 4. Same score as starting quarterbacks. Kyle Smith, 22-21 Steelers. BF Bud. Did see BF Bud. Didn't see you in the live chat earlier. 27-23 Steelers. I always mess up this name.
Rob Fitoff.
Thank you. 30-16 Browns. Mark Lancaster says 28-10 Steelers. Frosty the Bear says 17-13 Steelers. See, notice a lot of people that are saying Steelers are really dropping their scores down. Last week, there was a lot of high scores. And I'm like, I saw this big war game in the 20s. And it didn't even get to that. So, how do I say that?
I got to include it.
I have no idea how to say that. We'll say Verge. Verge says 31-3 skid marks. Okay. Someone was confirming that they said the only team that won after playing the 49ers was, this is W. Mitchell said, was the Chiefs, but that's because he had a bye in between. So that's something I'm trying to dive into.
Thomas Potts.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thomas Potts, 28-9 Browns. David Poe, 20-17 Steelers. John Walter, 20-13 Steelers. He says Watson gets right. I still think we didn't even talk about the good in TJ Watt. I mean, TJ Watt just needs to keep being TJ Watt.
What did you say? Just what else? Just TJ Watt's good. There you go.
TJ, he hold on just a second.
TJ Watt's really good.
No, TJ Watt is.
But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
That's TJ Watt. That's TJ Watt. I think I did the wrong one. I did the full thing, but yeah, that now I'm trying to find where is I completely lost. There it is.
Back to scores.
Yeah. No, I couldn't find where it was. Steve Sepos. Steelers 28, Browns 14. Hey, that's what the score was at the end of last year. I like your thinking. Ruben Stone says 20-13. Good guys get back on track. Outside Steeler fan says good guys 24, Browns 14, that the defense really turns it around. Biggie Bronco says 24-17 Browns. Christopher 11 says 27-10 Browns, but It's what he's like. It's what you think, but that's not what you're hoping for. Gotcha. Tyler W. 21-16 Browns says the Steelers just aren't ready for prime time yet. I was starting to think the problem is the Steelers played prime time games for all 3 of their preseason games. Maybe prime time is what they need. Just put that out there. Matt Roberts, 28-10 Browns. Carey, 28-10 Browns. Pittsburgh Toddy, 20-17 Steelers. Knight Rider, we got a lot of people here tonight. Right? Knight Rider 16, 24-10 Browns. Mr. Woodside, 23-20 Browns. Sherry Richards says she's still sticking with 23-21, just like last week. W. Mitchell says, did it come up?
Yeah.
There it is. 24-21 Steelers, hopefully. Vincent G, you got to say there, 27-21 Steelers come through with a game-winning drive. Looking for more scores. I had some good people are asking great questions, but we're just going to bring up scores. Tom Vallejo says Browns 27, Steelers 10. Brian Brown. He says I thought that was a score. That was a record prediction. 16-1. BF Bud says he's just lurking.
No one you know here.
Thank you. 23-10 Brands. Iron Fist. 27-13 Browns. As you can see, no one did other than you. You were the only one who picked the Niners last week. Remember? Okay.
Everybody gave me a hard time.
Yep.
Who was right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Alan Goddard.
Right, but I had a feeling I was going to be right.
Alan Goddard says Browns 35, Steelers 7. I'm trying to see if there's any more. We got a super chat. I missed this one. Yeah. Tyler W. $2 says now people saw the 49ers. They learned what 30 points per game means. In other words, that's the performance you kind of need for 30 points a game. Is that how you take that, Rich?
That's how I take that.
Yeah. So I'd be crazy. I'll be interested to see if anyone can put 30 on that defense this season. So
you got to read that one.
He said, I can't do it, Dave. I retract my previous score. 26-21 Steelers. Yes, I haven't got there yet. I know what you mean, Wes. You know what? This is my problem right now. I'll tell you right now, if I gave my score now, it would not be the Steelers if I give my score now. But I got 2 days until the preview, and who knows how it's gonna change by then. So I definitely feel you there, Wes. Someone said that you sounded like Denny Green. That was because it was Denny Green. Richard Adamson says 17-14 Steelers. I think that's kind of what it's going to take. Would it be nice to see the Steelers come out and just the offense just go explode and be like, whoa, this is what we were waiting for. But
I don't even need
love to see it. I can't predict it.
I just need to see some good plays, some good drives, some points on the board. They need to restore my faith in the offense because it was that bad. So,
yeah. What was I going to say? George Rice said something that I want to kind of bring up. He said last week nobody would have picked the Browns. You're right. Last week the Steelers were favored in this game, and now they're not.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yep, exactly.
But you know what? We're going to continue to bring it. We're so close to the last game. We haven't really, usually we're more the transition show, but the next game is an extra day away. So that's why we really did focus more on the last game, which means that our schedule, it's going to probably hold pretty true until the weekend with our podcasts. And then some things might be tweaked. We'll talk about that later in the week as we get to go on that. Next week, we'll be on a compressed schedule. I assume we'll still be Tuesday night, but we very well might be the second of two shows. We've done that in the past. If we don't get bumped to a different night, back a night, I've got to talk about that with the powers that be.
Right. We could see an early, regular 5 o'clock hangover followed by the 9 p.m. Scho Bros. We'll see.
Yeah, but that very well could be it. I just hope the overall tone is going to be different. I mean,
I just want to feel different because
Yeah.
that was such a terrible, terrible game, such a shellacking. I just don't want to feel like that again. It was rough.
Yeah, and the thing
Give me some
is,
hope. There was no hope coming out of that game. I need some hope.
and the problem is this. It's the one problem with it being the Browns is that if almost any other, if it wasn't an AFC North team, you could maybe even go into this game and say, you know what, if they don't, it's a quality opponent. If they don't win, maybe you can still take something about them going in the right direction. Not with the Browns.
No.
You know, probably only going to feel, I mean, you might feel a little bit better about the trajectory, but you're not going to feel that much better if it's not a W.
Yeah.
Really. Because
it's the
honestly,
Browns.
if you're going to, I mean, not only is that the best team, probably the best team the Steelers are going to face all year, possibly the best team, it's a non-conference opponent. Non-conference opponent. So it hurts the least, other than the fact you dropped one of your home games. But you had an extra one this year. So, you know, then if you turn around and lose a division game, that hurts.
Yep.
So we're going to see. Is what we saw as the potential during the preseason, is that spark still inside the Steelers? I mean, yeah, everything's vanilla, but they just had a different spark about them that they did not have in this game. Is that spark still there, or was that the exception? Or was it, hey, bad outing, got to do better next time? That spark's still there, and let's see it. All right, Rich, what do you want to say here to close this out tonight?
Really, I just ready to move on.
Yes.
Really, that's where we are. We're ready to move on. So we got to wait that extra day. Got to get across to Monday before we even get the chance to move on. Hey, I'm going. I'm going to be sitting there. I'm going to have my terrible towel. I'm going to be, screaming my brains out like I usually am. And, somebody mentioned, hey, maybe our chances are better because I am going to the game, but Kyle is not. Kyle was cursed there for a little while.
Yeah.
But, in the end, we're going to go play. I'm going to cheer for my Steelers. And really my hope is that I come back here on Tuesday night and get to breathe in that sweet smell of victory. Can't wait.
Can't wait.